The wagon lurched to a halt, dust swirling in the unforgiving Arizona sun. Catherine Winslow pressed her palms against the splintered wood, fighting the nausea that had nothing to do with the journey and everything to do with what awaited her at its end. Through the canvas opening, she could see the settlement, a collection of rough buildings that would become her prison. Her father's voice boomed from outside, finalizing arrangements with the man she'd never met. The 43-year-old cattle baron who'd paid handsomely for a young wife to warm his bed and bear his sons. "Catherine, fix your hair," her mother hissed, climbing into the wagon. "Mr. Thornton is waiting." Before Catherine could answer, the world exploded into chaos. War cries pierced the air, gunshots cracked like thunder, and the wagon shook violently. Her mother screamed, scrambling toward the back. Catherine froze, her heart hammering against her ribs as a shadow fell across the opening. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and give this video a like. It truly means so much to us and motivates us to bring you more quality content like this. I'd love to know, where are you listening from today? The Apache warrior who appeared was not what she expected. He moved with lethal grace, his dark eyes sharp and assessing as they swept over her. Blood streaked his muscular arm, but his breathing remained steady. Behind him, chaos reigned. Settlers scattering, horses screaming, smoke rising from a wagon that had caught fire. "Come," he said in accented English, extending a hand calloused from years of survival. Catherine's mother shrieked, "Don't you dare touch her!" But Catherine saw something in his eyes that her family had never shown her. A question, not a command. He was offering a choice, however impossible it seemed in that moment. She took his hand. He pulled her from the wagon with surprising gentleness, his grip firm but not bruising. The moment her boots hit the ground, he swept her onto his paint horse, mounting behind her in one fluid motion. His arm wrapped around her waist, holding her steady as they thundered away from the settlement, from her father's schemes, from the stranger who'd bought her like cattle. They rode for hours, the landscape transforming from scrub brush to rocky canyons, painted in shades of rust and gold. Catherine's body ached from the unfamiliar position, but she didn't complain. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit had long since faded. The warrior, she didn't even know his name, rode with absolute certainty, following paths invisible to her untrained eyes. When they finally stopped beside a spring hidden in a canyon shadow, Catherine slid from the horse on trembling legs. She turned to face her captor, expecting demands, violence, the fate her mother had always warned her about. Instead, he knelt by the water, cupped his hands, and drank deeply before gesturing for her to do the same. "You are not prisoner," he said, his English halting but clear. "I am Nahali. I saw your face in that wagon. You were already captive." Catherine's throat tightened. She knelt beside the spring, the cool water soothing her parched mouth. "My family ordered me to marry a stranger," she whispered. "A cruel man. I've heard the stories about him." "Then your family is foolish." Nahale examined the wound on his arm, a bullet graze that had stopped bleeding. "Among my people, a woman chooses, or she does not marry. But you took me." His dark eyes met hers, unflinching. "I gave you a chance to run. You took it. That was your choice." Over the following days, Catherine learned what freedom truly meant. Nahale took her to his camp, high in the mountains, where pine trees grew thick and the air tasted clean. His people regarded her with suspicion at first. A white woman brought into their midst during a time of increasing conflict with settlers and soldiers. But Nahale spoke for her, his words carrying weight she didn't yet understand. "She will learn our ways," he told the tribal elders, "or she will leave when she wishes, her choice." That phrase became a constant refrain, her choice, whether to sleep in his wickiup or apart, whether to learn their language or remain silent, whether to dress in the deerskin clothes the women offered or keep her tattered traveling dress. Every decision was hers. Catherine chose to stay, chose to learn, chose to watch Nahale with growing fascination as he moved through his world with the confidence her father and intended husband had only mimicked with bluster and violence. The old woman, Desba, took Catherine under her guidance. "You watch him," she observed one morning as they ground corn. "He watches you too, but he is bound by oath." "What oath?" Desba's weathered face softened. His wife died 2 winters past, bringing their child into the world. Neither survived. He swore to the spirits he would not take another wife, not while his grief remained. Catherine's chest tightened. She'd noticed the sadness that shadowed Nahale's eyes during quiet moments, the way he sometimes touched a small leather pouch at his belt with reverent fingers. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry does not help the living," Desba said, practically. "But perhaps the living can help each other heal." The healing came slowly, built through small moments that accumulated like stones in a riverbed. Nahale taught Catherine to track game, to read the stories written in disturbed earth and broken branches. His hands guided hers on the bow, patient when she missed, quietly proud when her arrow finally struck true. "You learn quickly," he said one evening as they watched the sunset paint the mountains in shades of fire. "You are stronger than you believed." "I didn't have a choice before," Catherine replied. "Strength wasn't allowed." He turned to face her, and in the dying light his features seemed carved from the stone around them, beautiful and severe and utterly honest. "You always had strength. They tried to break it. They failed." When his fingers brushed her cheek, Catherine's breath caught. The touch was feather-light, questioning. She leaned into it, answering without words. "I should not," Nahale murmured, but he didn't pull away. "My oath." "Your oath was born from pain," Catherine said softly. "But grief is not meant to be carried forever. Even I know that, and I'm still learning your ways." His thumb traced her lower lip, and she felt him tremble, this warrior who'd faced death countless times, undone by a simple touch. "If we do this," he said, his voice rough, "it must be real. Not gratitude, not escape. Real." "It is real," Catherine breathed. "I see you, Nahale. Not what you've lost, what you are." The kiss was inevitable, urgent, and achingly tender all at once. His hands framed her face like she was something precious. Something worth protecting, not from the world, but from the mistakes of his past. Catherine melted into him, feeling the hard planes of his body against hers, the rapid beat of his heart matching her own. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Nahale rested his forehead against hers. "Together," he whispered. "Together," she agreed. But peace in the Arizona territory was as fleeting as summer rain. 3 weeks after that first kiss, soldiers came. Catherine was gathering herbs with Desba when they heard the gunshots, the screams, the thunder of hooves. They ran back to camp to find chaos. Blue-coated soldiers everywhere, rounding up the Apache at gunpoint. children crying, elders being shoved roughly into line. "The reservation," Desba spat. "They will force us onto the reservation." Catherine's eyes frantically searched for Nahale. She found him near the center of camp, facing down a lieutenant whose red face spoke of anger and entitlement. 3 soldiers aimed rifles at Nahale's chest. "This is the one who's been raiding supply wagons," the lieutenant announced. "We've been tracking him for months." "I take only what my people need to survive," Nahale said calmly, though his hand hovered near the knife at his belt. "The reservation land you offer cannot feed us. Game is scarce. Water is scarce. You ask us to die slowly instead of quickly. You'll hang for your crimes against the United States government." "No!" Catherine pushed through the crowd, ignoring Desba's grasping hands. "He saved my life." The lieutenant's gaze swung to her, his eyes widening as he took in her white features beneath the Apache clothing. "Ma'am, are you being held against your will?" It was the moment of truth. Catherine could claim captivity, could return to the world she'd fled. The soldiers would protect her. Her family might even take her back, though the stain of living among savages would follow her forever. She could be safe, civilized, suffocated once again, or she could choose. Her family ordered her to marry a stranger, Catherine said clearly, using the third person deliberately, telling her story as if it belonged to someone else, someone she'd left behind in that wagon. But the Apache who kidnapped her set her free instead. She stepped beside Nahale, taking his hand. "I'm exactly where I choose to be." The lieutenant's face purpled. "You've gone native. You don't know what you're saying." "I know precisely what I'm saying." Catherine's voice rang. "Or you can leave me in peace with the man I love." "This is madness!" The gunshot cracked through the air, but it didn't come from the soldiers. Catherine's head whipped around to see her father, rifle raised, murder in his eyes. "You've shamed us enough, girl." Time crystallized. Catherine saw Nahale move, saw him push her behind him even as her father's finger tightened on the trigger again. She didn't think, just acted. Her hand found the knife at Nahale's belt, and she threw it with the skill he'd taught her. The blade struck her father's rifle, knocking it from his hands. In the stunned silence that followed, Catherine stepped forward. "I'm not your property," she said, her voice steady, despite her shaking hands. "I never was. You tried to sell me to Thornton like livestock, and when that failed, you tracked me here. But I'm done being controlled by men who see me as a thing to own." Her father's face contorted with rage, but the lieutenant raised a hand. "Enough. This is a complicated situation." He looked between Catherine and Nahale. "We're taking the Apache to the reservation. If this woman chooses to go with them, that's her decision. But if she's there under duress, that's a federal crime." "She is my wife," Nahale said suddenly, his hand tightening around Catherine's. "By the laws of my people, we are married. She chose me, and I chose her." It wasn't entirely true. They'd shared no formal ceremony. But Catherine squeezed his hand back, understanding the gambit. "I'm his wife," she confirmed, "and I go where he goes." The reservation was everything Nahale had warned her about. Dusty, crowded, with rations that barely sustained half the people forced onto its boundaries. But Catherine and Nahale carved out a life there together, small but fiercely protected. They built a wickiup at the edge of the settlement, where they could see the mountains that represented freedom. "I'm sorry," Nahale said one night, holding her close as the wind howled outside. "This is not the life I wanted to give you." "You gave me myself," Catherine replied, tilting her face up to his. "Everything else is just details." But details mattered when survival hung in the balance. As winter approached, Catherine watched children grow thin, saw elders succumb to illnesses that proper food and medicine could have prevented. The soldiers who administered the reservation were corrupt, selling half the rations meant for the Apache and pocketing the profits. "We can't stay here," Catherine said one evening as she tended a child burning with fever. "They're killing your people slowly, just as you predicted." Nahale's jaw tightened. "If we run, they will hunt us. You will be labeled a criminal. Then we'll be criminals together." Catherine met his eyes unflinching. "I didn't choose freedom just to watch it die behind barbed wire." The escape was planned carefully, over 3 months. Catherine used her status as a white woman to move more freely around the reservation, gathering intelligence, stealing supplies bit by bit. Nahale recruited warriors, willing to risk everything for a chance at true freedom. Desba organized the women and children, teaching them how to move quietly, how to leave no trail. On a moonless night in February, 43 Apache vanished from the reservation like smoke. They rode hard into Mexico, where the U.S. government's reach was weaker. Catherine clung to Nahale's back as they crossed the border, feeling the horse's powerful muscles bunch and release beneath them, feeling the wind tear at her hair and the boundless sky open above them. "Go slow," she gasped as Nahale urged the horse up a treacherous rocky path. "It hurts." He immediately reined in the horse, his hand coming back to steady her. "I'll die before I hurt you," he murmured. "We rest." They made camp in a canyon that night, and Catherine finally allowed herself to breathe. Around them, families reunited. Children laughed for the first time in months. Warriors sat taller. Freedom had a sound, she realized. It sounded like hope. Nahale found her at the edge of camp, staring up at the stars. "You gave up everything," he said quietly. "Your family, your people, any chance of returning to your old life." "My old life was a cage with prettier bars," Catherine replied. She turned to face him, this man who'd shown her what true partnership meant. "You asked me once if this was real, if what I felt was more than gratitude or escape. I remember. Ask me again." Nahale cupped her face in his hands, those capable hands that could track prey or gentle a horse or touch her like she was sacred. "Is this real, Catherine? What we have? Is it real?" "Yes," she breathed, "and I want to make it official. Among your people, among any people who'll recognize it. I want to be your wife, truly." His smile was like sunrise, breaking over the mountains, slow, warm, transforming everything it touched. "Among my people, a marriage is simple. We stand before the tribe, we speak our promises, we tie our hands together with cord. That is all." "Then let's do it. Now, tonight." They gathered the tribe around the fire, and Nahale spoke in his language. Words Catherine was still learning but understood in her heart. She spoke her vows in English, then repeated them haltingly in Apache, drawing gentle laughter and approving nods from the watching faces. Desba tied their hands together with deerskin cord, her weathered face creasing in a wide smile. "Two broken pieces," she said, "made whole together." When Nahale kissed his wife, the tribe erupted in celebration. Catherine kissed him back, tasting salt and smoke and the promise of a future they'd build together, one choice at a time. They settled in the Sierra Madre Mountains, joining with other Apache who'd fled the reservations. Life was hard. They hunted, gathered, moved frequently to avoid Mexican soldiers and American bounty hunters. But it was life on their own terms. Catherine learned to shoot with deadly accuracy, to track game through forests and across streams, to read the weather in the clouds and the seasons in the plants. She learned the stories of Nahale's people, their history and wisdom, until she could tell them to the children who gathered around her in the evenings. She also taught reading, writing, bits of mathematics, skills that might help her adopted people navigate the changing world that encroached ever closer on their territories. Knowledge, she believed, was as valuable as any weapon. A year after their escape, Catherine discovered she was pregnant. The news terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. She'd seen too many women die in childbirth, including Nahale's first wife. "I'm afraid," she admitted to him one night, her hand on her still flat belly. "What if—" "No." Nahale's voice was fierce as he pulled her close. "You are not her. This child is not that child. The past does not have to repeat. But you're afraid too. I can see it in your eyes." He was quiet for a long moment, his hand covering hers on her stomach. "Yes," he finally admitted. "I am terrified. But I'm also grateful. You've taught me that joy and fear can exist together, that loving again doesn't betray what I lost. It honors it." The pregnancy was difficult. Morning sickness gave way to exhaustion, and as Catherine's belly swelled, movement became harder in the rugged mountain terrain. But the women rallied around her, Desba especially, sharing wisdom passed down through generations. When her water broke on a hot August day, Catherine labored for 16 hours. Nahale paced outside the wickiup like a caged mountain lion, his face haggard with worry. Every cry from inside made him flinch. Finally, as the sun set, a baby's wail pierced the air. Desba emerged, her face split in a wide grin. "A son. Strong lungs, strong spirit. And your wife is fierce. She threatened to stab me if I suggested she couldn't do it." Nahale rushed inside to find Catherine exhausted but triumphant, holding a squalling infant against her chest. "Look what we made," she said, her voice hoarse but full of wonder. "Look at him, Nahale." He knelt beside them, his hand trembling as he touched the baby's downy head. Tears tracked down his face, unchecked. "He is perfect. You are perfect. I don't have words." "Then just feel it," Catherine whispered, guiding his hand to rest over hers on the baby's back. "Just be here with us." They named him Naichi, meaning mischievous in Apache, because from his first day, he seemed determined to keep them on their toes. He grew strong and curious, toddling after his father, watching everything with dark eyes that missed nothing. Catherine watched Nahale with their son, and saw wounds heal that she'd feared might never close. He was patient, playful, protective, everything a father should be. And when Naichi was 2, when Catherine told Nahale she was pregnant again, his fear was less and his joy more. Their daughter came easier, born on a morning when snow dusted the mountain peaks. They called her Njoni, beautiful, and she was. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's determined spirit. And from the moment she could walk, she followed her brother everywhere. Years passed. The Mexican government occasionally sent soldiers into the mountains, and twice the family had to flee deeper into the wilderness. But mostly, they were left alone, a small band of Apache living as their ancestors had, taking only what they needed, leaving the land as they found it. On Catherine's 30th birthday, Nahale took her to a hot spring hidden deep in a canyon. The children were safe with Desba, and for once, they had time just for each other. "Do you regret it?" he asked as they soaked in the warm water, stars wheeling overhead. The choice you made? Sometimes I wake up and fear you'll resent me for what you gave up. Catherine turned to face him, water streaming from her hair. I gave up a cage, Nahale. You didn't take me from something. You showed me the door. I chose to walk through it, and every day since, I've chosen to stay. That's not something to regret. That's something to celebrate. She kissed him, slow and deep, tasting the minerals from the spring and the sweetness that was uniquely him. Her family ordered her to marry a stranger, she murmured against his lips. But the Apache who kidnapped her set her free instead. Best trade I ever made. Nahale laughed. Afterward, wrapped in blankets, Catherine traced the scars on Nahale's chest, marks from battles, from survival, from a life lived fully despite its hardships. Tell me again how you knew, she said softly. That day you took me, how you knew I wanted to go. Your eyes, he replied immediately. They were the eyes of a wild horse in a too small corral. I know that look. I've worn it myself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is run toward uncertainty rather than stay with suffering you know. And now? Now your eyes are free. They see horizons instead of walls. He kissed her forehead. That is worth any risk we took to get here. As Catherine drifted to sleep in her husband's arms, the hot spring steaming around them, she thought about the girl she'd been. Terrified, controlled, convinced she had no choices. That girl seemed like a stranger now. But she wasn't a stranger. She was Catherine's foundation, the person she'd had to be before she could become who she was meant to be. Every woman she'd been had led her here, to this mountain, this man, this life built on choices freely made. In the morning, they would return to their children, to their tribe, to the daily work of survival. There would be challenges ahead. There always were. The world was changing, shrinking, leaving less and less space for people who wanted to live outside its rigid definitions. But Catherine had learned something essential in her years with Nahale. Freedom wasn't a place you arrived at. It was a practice, a choice you made over and over again, every single day. And she would choose it, choose him, choose this life for as long as breath remained in her body. Together, they would face whatever came, just as they had from the very beginning, together. The winter of 1883 brought unusual cold to the Sierra Madre. Snow fell in heavy sheets, blanketing the mountains in white silence. Catherine stood at the entrance of their wickiup, watching Nahale and 8-year-old Naichi track through the drifts, the boy's smaller footprints following his father's exact path. They were hunting deer, and Nahale was teaching his son to read the stories written in snow. Which tracks were fresh, which animals were desperate, which trails would lead to success. Inside, 6-year-old Najoni sat with Desba, learning to bead a ceremonial dress. Catherine's daughter had her father's patience and her mother's stubborn determination. A combination that meant she'd spend hours perfecting a single pattern until it met her exacting standards. "Mama, when will they return?" Najoni asked without looking up from her work. "When the hunt is done," Catherine replied, settling beside them with her own mending. "Your father won't come back empty-handed, not with Naichi watching his every move." Desba chuckled, her fingers never pausing in their work. "That boy worships Nahale. He'll be a fine warrior someday." Catherine's chest tightened at the word warrior. The world beyond their mountain sanctuary was changing rapidly. Railroad tracks scarred the landscape. Towns sprouted like weeds, and the space for people who wanted to live as the Apache always had grew smaller each year. She feared what kind of world her children would inherit, whether there would be room in it for warriors at all. A shout from outside made all three women freeze. Catherine recognized the voice. Goyale, one of the men who'd fled the reservation with them. She rushed to the entrance and saw him riding hard into camp, his horse lathered with sweat despite the cold. "Soldiers," he gasped, sliding from his mount. "American soldiers, 2 days' ride south. They have Apache scouts with them, trackers who know these mountains." Catherine's blood turned cold. "How many?" 30, maybe 40. "They're asking about a white woman living with renegade Apache. Someone told them about you, Catherine." She closed her eyes, understanding immediately. After 8 years, her father hadn't given up. He'd probably offered a reward, hired investigators, done whatever it took to find his kidnapped daughter. To him, she was still property that had been stolen. Within an hour, the camp transformed into controlled chaos. Nahale and Naichi returned from their hunt, the deer forgotten when they heard the news. The tribal council gathered, voices rising in heated debate. "We should split up," one warrior argued. "Smaller groups are harder to track." "We should fight," another countered. "We're tired of running." Nahale stood, his presence commanding silence. "We fight only if we have no choice. These soldiers have Apache scouts, men who know our ways because they once were us. We cannot outfight them, but we can outlast them. Winter is our ally. We go higher into the mountains, where the snow is too deep for horses, where white men fear to follow." "And Catherine?" Desba asked quietly. "They hunt for her specifically. Perhaps if she—" "No." Nahale's voice cut like a blade. "We do not trade our people for safety. Catherine is Apache now. She stays with us, or I go with her. There is no other option." Catherine felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I won't let you risk the tribe for me. If I go to them willingly, then you sentence yourself to a cage again." Nahale crossed to her, taking her hands in his. His palms were rough, warm, familiar. "I did not free you just to watch you surrender. We fight for you because you are one of us, because your children are Apache, because love is not something we abandon when it becomes difficult." Naichi pushed forward, his young face fierce. "I'll fight them, father. I won't let them take mother." "You will protect your sister," Nahale said firmly. "That is your duty, my son." Warriors know when to fight and when to preserve what matters most. They moved that night, taking only what they could carry on their backs. The snow had stopped, but the temperature plummeted, each breath forming clouds of frost. Catherine carried Najoni bundled against her chest, the girl's small body providing warmth, even as Catherine's feet went numb in her moccasins. They climbed higher than they'd ever ventured, into regions where the air grew thin and the trees twisted into strange shapes. The elderly struggled, children whimpered with cold, but no one complained aloud. Survival depended on silence, on speed, on the desperate hope that they could disappear into the white wilderness. On the third night, they huddled in a cave system that Nahale had scouted years ago as a last resort. The space was cramped, forcing 43 people to press together for warmth. Catherine held her children close, feeling Nahale's body at her back, solid and reassuring. "I'm sorry," she whispered into the darkness. "This is my fault. If you hadn't chosen freedom, you would have died inside that cage." Nahale's voice was quiet but fierce. "Do not apologize for living, Catherine. Do not apologize for choosing love over fear. But the children, We'll learn that some things are worth fighting for, worth running for, worth risking everything to preserve. His arm tightened around her waist. They will learn that their mother is brave, that she faced down the world, that tried to break her, and built something beautiful instead. Catherine turned in his embrace, careful not to disturb the sleeping children. In the dim light from the fire, Nahali's face was all sharp angles and deep shadows. She touched his cheek, feeling the rasp of stubble, the warmth of skin, the reality of this man who'd shown her what partnership truly meant. "I love you," she said simply. "No matter what comes, I need you to know that. Choosing you was the easiest decision I ever made." He kissed her, slow and sweet, despite their circumstances, despite the cold and the danger and the uncertain future. "Together," he murmured against her lips. "Together," she agreed. But morning brought a new crisis. One of the elderly women, Hastine, had developed a rattling cough during the night. By afternoon, she burned with fever, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Catherine recognized the signs. Pneumonia, deadly in these conditions, without proper medicine or shelter. "We have to get her somewhere warm," Catherine told the tribal council. "She won't survive another night in this cold. If we light a large fire, the smoke will give away our position," Goyale pointed out. "Then we're sentencing her to death." The words hung in the frozen air. Nahale looked between his wife and the dying woman, his face anguished. Catherine saw the weight of leadership crushing down on him. Every choice a calculation of who lived and who died, what risks were acceptable, and what constituted surrender. "I'll take her down the mountain," Catherine said suddenly, "to the nearest town. Tell them I escaped from you, but I've been trying to get away for years. They'll believe that. It's what they want to believe. And while they're distracted with me, you can move the tribe to safety." "Absolutely not." Nahale's voice was flat, final. "I will not use you as bait. It's not bait, it's strategy. I'm the one they're looking for. Let me be found." Catherine met his eyes, pouring every ounce of conviction into her gaze. "I can play the rescued captive. I've watched my mother and every society woman I ever knew perform that role, helpless, grateful, traumatized. I can do it in my sleep. And while they're congratulating themselves on saving me, you save our people." "And then," Nahale demanded, "you return to your father? To that life?" "No." Catherine's voice rang with certainty. "I buy you time to get to safety. Then I escape and find you. I've learned from the best tracker in the Sierra Madre, haven't I? I can follow your trail." The plan was desperate, dangerous, and their best option. Catherine knew it, and from the look in Nahale's eyes, he knew it too. But knowing didn't make it easier. They descended under cover of darkness, Catherine supporting Hastine while Nahale scouted ahead. At the edge of the tree line, overlooking a small mining town, they stopped. "This is where we part," Catherine said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "Get Hastine to the doctor, make sure she's safe, then get back to the tribe." "Catherine," she pressed her fingers to his lips, "don't make this harder. We both know it's the right choice." Nahale pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I will come for you," he said fiercely. "No matter what happens, no matter where they take you, I will find you. This is not goodbye." "It's never a goodbye for us," Catherine agreed. She kissed him one last time, pouring 8 years of love and partnership and shared survival into that kiss. Then she pulled away, took Hastine's arm, and started down the mountain without looking back. The town doctor was shocked to see two half-frozen women stumble into his office before dawn. Catherine played her role perfectly. The traumatized captive who'd finally escaped her Apache kidnappers. The brave woman who'd managed to save one of her captors who'd shown her kindness. She wept convincingly, flinched at sudden movements, and begged them not to go after the tribe. "They'll kill more innocents if you pursue them," she pleaded. "Please, just let me go home. All I want is to see my family again." The telegraph wires hummed with the news. Within 2 days, her father arrived, older and grayer, but no less controlling. He embraced her stiffly, his eyes scanning her Apache clothing with barely concealed disgust. "Thank God we found you," he said, his voice pitched for the audience of townspeople. "My poor daughter, what you must have endured." Catherine allowed herself to be led away, to be dressed in civilized clothes that felt like a straitjacket, to be paraded as the returned prodigal daughter. She smiled when expected, cried when prompted, and all the while, her mind calculated escape routes and distances. But her father wasn't foolish. He'd learned from his first failure. This time, he kept her locked in her room at the hotel, posted guards outside her door, and announced they'd be leaving for San Francisco on the morning train, far from the mountains, far from any chance of Nahale finding her. Catherine lay in the soft bed that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the walls close in. She'd bought the tribe time, 3 days so far, maybe 4 before the soldiers lost interest and returned to their duties. It had to be enough. Nahale would get them to safety, would keep their children safe, would he come for her? He'd promised, but Catherine knew the odds. Finding one woman in a city of thousands, navigating a world he didn't know, risking capture with every step. It was nearly impossible. But Nahale had never let impossible stop him before. On her 5th night of captivity, Catherine stood at her window, looking out at the mountains in the distance. Somewhere up there, her real life waited. Her children, her people, her husband, everything that mattered. "I'm coming back," she whispered to the darkness. "I don't know how yet, but I'm coming back. This isn't over." In the mountains, Nahale stood at the entrance to their new camp, staring down at the town lights below. Beside him, Naichi touched his father's arm. "Will Mama come home?" the boy asked quietly. Nahale pulled his son close. "Your mother is the strongest person I know. She'll find her way back to us. And if she can't," he paused, jaw tightening, "then I'll go get her. I freed her once. I'll do it as many times as it takes." The train to San Francisco was scheduled to depart at dawn. Catherine sat in her locked room, still wearing the elaborate nightgown her father had purchased, as if proper clothing could erase 8 years of living free. She'd spent the night working on the window latch, using a hairpin to gradually loosen the screws. Her fingers ached, but the latch was finally compromised enough that she could force it open. The problem was the 3-story drop to the street below. Catherine measured the distance with her eyes, remembering everything Nahale had taught her about assessing risks. A direct fall would break her legs at minimum, likely kill her. But the building next door was close, perhaps 4 feet away, and slightly lower. If she could jump to that roof, a soft tapping at the window made her freeze. Catherine's heart leaped as she peered through the glass. A face appeared from below, paint-streaked, fierce, unmistakably Apache. "Goyale." He gestured urgently downward. Catherine looked and saw a rope, secured somewhere above and hanging past her window. The warrior had climbed the building in darkness, in a town full of people who would shoot him on sight. to bring her a way out. Catherine's hands shook as she forced the window open. The night air hit her face, cold and smelling of wood smoke and freedom. She grabbed the rope, tested its strength, and looked down at Goyale's expectant face. "Where's Nahale?" she whispered. "Waiting. We go now." Catherine hiked up the ridiculous nightgown and climbed out the window. Her muscles, softened by 5 days of captivity, screamed in protest as she gripped the rope. Hand over hand, she descended, her feet bracing against the building's rough exterior. Halfway down, a shout erupted from inside the hotel. "She's escaping! The prisoner's escaping!" "Faster!" Goyael urged from below. Catherine let herself slide the last 10 feet, the rope burning her palms. She hit the ground hard, stumbling into Goyael's steadying grip. He thrust clothing at her, buckskin pants and shirt, moccasins, a warm jacket. "Change! Quick!" Catherine stripped off the nightgown without shame, pulling on her real clothes with shaking hands. The buckskin felt like coming home. Goyael handed her a knife, a water skin, and a leather pouch that smelled like Nahale. Sage and pine smoke, and the particular scent of his skin. "He wanted you to have this," Goyael said. "Said you'd know what it means." Catherine opened the pouch with trembling fingers. Inside was the small leather bag Nahale always wore, the one containing items from his first wife and child. He'd given her his most precious possession, his grief and his past, trusting her to bring it back to him. The message was clear. "Come home. I'll wait forever if I have to." "Let's go," Catherine said, tucking the pouch into her jacket. They ran through the dark streets, Goyale, navigating with the same confidence Nahale showed in the wilderness. Behind them, lamps flickered to life, voices shouted, the town began to wake. But by the time the guards organized a pursuit, Catherine and Goyale had reached the edge of town, where 2 horses waited, held by a young Apache warrior Catherine didn't recognize. "Nahale sent half the camp to help," Goyale explained as Catherine mounted. "We will not lose you again." They rode hard into the darkness, the horses sure-footed despite the terrain. As the first light of dawn painted the sky, Catherine saw familiar landmarks, the twisted pine, the rock formation that looked like a sleeping giant, the trail only Apache eyes could find. And then she saw him. Nahale stood at the meeting point, Naichi and Nijoni on either side of him. The moment Catherine came into view, the children broke ranks, running toward her with cries of joy. She slid from the horse and caught them both, falling to her knees as they collided with her. "Mama, Mama, you came back!" "Of course I came back," Catherine said fiercely, kissing their faces, their hair, breathing in the scent of them. "Did you doubt it?" "Father said you'd come," Naichi said, his voice trying for bravery but breaking with relief. "He said you'd never leave us." Over their heads, Catherine met Nahale's eyes. He stood 10 feet away, his face unreadable, his body tense. She gently disentangled from the children and stood, walking slowly toward her husband. "You came for me," she said softly. "I will always come for you." Nahale's voice was rough. "I freed you once. I'll do it as many times as it takes." Catherine pulled out the leather pouch, held it between them. "You sent me your heart. I sent you a reminder." He took the pouch, but didn't put it away. Instead, he opened it and pulled out a lock of dark hair from his first wife. Catherine knew. He looked at it for a long moment, then back at Catherine. "She would have liked you. You're both fierce, both brave, both too stubborn to accept the cages men build for you. Then, deliberately, he added a lock of Catherine's hair to the pouch. Red gold against midnight black. Two women who'd shaped his life. Two loves that didn't diminish each other, but instead proved his capacity to love deeply. "You carry us both now?" Catherine whispered. "I carry what matters," Nahale replied. "Past and present, grief and joy, everything that made me who I am." He tucked the pouch away and pulled Catherine into his arms. "You are my present, Catherine, my future, and I will spend every day I have left making sure you never regret choosing me." "Regret?" Catherine laughed against his chest. "I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over." They held each other as the sun rose, painting the mountains in shades of gold and rose. Around them, the tribe began to move, continuing their journey deeper into the wilderness. But for this moment, Catherine let herself simply be, held, loved, home. "We should go," Nahale finally said. "They'll send trackers. Let them come." Catherine pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "I'm done running from who I am. I'm Apache, I'm your wife, I'm free. And if the world has a problem with that, the world can learn to adapt." Nahale's smile was slow and brilliant. "Fierce woman. You made me this way." "No." He touched her face gently. "I just gave you space to become who you always were." They rode together, Catherine in front of Nahale on his horse, their children on a second mount led by Goyali. The tribe moved in its practiced pattern, scouts ahead and behind, families protected in the center, warriors at the flanks. They were a people in motion, refusing to be confined, choosing hardship and freedom over comfort and chains. That night, as they made camp in a hidden valley, Catherine sat with the other women and told them everything. How she'd played the captive, how she'd escaped, how Goyali had risked his life to bring her a rope. "You are truly one of us now," Desba said, her eyes bright with pride. "Many women are born Apache. You chose to become Apache. That makes your bond stronger, not weaker." Catherine looked around the fire at these women who'd accepted her, taught her, become her sisters in all but blood. "I never fit in my old world," she said slowly. "I was too stubborn, too questioning, too unwilling to be what they wanted. I thought something was wrong with me." "Nothing was wrong with you," Desba replied. "You were just a bird in a cage too small. All you needed was open sky." "And someone willing to open the cage door," Catherine added, her eyes finding Nahale across the fire. He was showing Nai Chi how to sharpen a knife, patient and thorough, but his gaze kept drifting to her. When their eyes met, the connection was electric. 8 years of partnership, passion, and shared survival compressed into a single look. Later, in the privacy of their wickiup, Nahale tended to Catherine's rope-burned hands with a salve made from desert plants. His touch was gentle, reverent, and when he lifted her palm to his lips, she felt the gesture in her core. "I was terrified," he admitted quietly, "when you didn't come back that first night. When I heard the train was leaving at dawn, I thought I'd lost you. You'll never lose me." Catherine cupped his face with her bandaged hands. "I'm bound to you in ways that have nothing to do with rope or ceremony. My soul knows yours, Nahale. Even if they'd taken me to San Francisco, even if they'd locked me in a tower, eventually I would have found my way back." He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and tinged with the desperation of almost loss. Catherine responded with equal fervor, her fingers tangling in his long hair, her body pressing against his with a need that went beyond physical desire. This was affirmation. We're alive. We're together. We survived another test. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nahale rested his forehead against hers. "No more separations," he said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." "Together," Catherine agreed. But even as she said it, she knew the promise was precarious. The world was changing too fast, pressing in too hard. How much longer could they live this way? How much longer before their children's children had no choice but to adapt to reservation life or vanish entirely? These questions haunted Catherine over the following weeks as the tribe established a winter camp high in the mountains. The children played in the snow, learning the skills that had sustained Apache people for generations. But Catherine couldn't shake the feeling that she was watching something precious slip away, like water through cupped hands. One evening, as she watched the sunset paint the mountains in fire, Nahale came to stand beside her. "You're troubled," he observed. "I'm thinking about the future, about what kind of world Naichi and Njoni will inherit." Catherine turned to him. "We can run, we can hide, we can fight. But how long can we sustain this? How long before there's nowhere left to run?" Nahale was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," he finally admitted. "But I know this. Our children will grow up free. They will know what it means to live on their own terms, to make their own choices. And that knowledge, that example, it can never be taken from them, no matter what the future brings." "You think that's enough?" "I think it has to be." He pulled her close, his arm around her shoulders. "We can't control the world, Catherine. We can only control how we meet it, with fear or with courage. You chose courage the day you took my hand in that wagon. Our children will learn courage from us." Catherine leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. "Then we teach them everything, not just survival skills, but reading, writing, mathematics. Both worlds, so they can navigate whatever comes." "Both worlds," Nahale agreed. "Apache and white, warrior and scholar. They'll be stronger for having both." As the stars emerged overhead, Catherine made a silent vow. Whatever time they had, months or years or decades, she would make it count. She would love fiercely, fight when necessary, and show her children through example what it meant to live authentically. The world might be changing, but some truths remained constant. Love, family, freedom, courage. These were worth any sacrifice, any risk, any hardship. These were worth everything. 3 years passed in the Sierra Madre, marked by seasons and small triumphs. Naichi turned 11 and killed his first deer. The pride on Nahale's face worth more than any prize. Njoni turned 9 and mastered reading in both English and Spanish, devouring every book Catherine could trade for or steal from distant towns. The tribe remained free, moving with the seasons, taking what they needed and leaving no trace. But in the spring of 1886, everything changed. A runner arrived from another Apache band with news that sent shockwaves through the camp. Geronimo himself, the legendary warrior who defied the U.S. government for decades, had surrendered. Along with him, hundreds of Apache had been rounded up and shipped to Florida. Men, women, children, all being sent thousands of miles from their homeland. "It's over," Goyale said at the council meeting that night, his voice hollow. "If even Geronimo couldn't maintain freedom, what chance do we have? We have the mountains, Another warrior argued. We know this land better than any white soldier. How long? Desba's voice cut through the debate. How long before they hunt us all down? I'm old. I've lived my life. But these children... She gestured to where Naichi and Nijoni sat with the other young ones. They deserve better than to spend their entire lives running. Catherine felt Nahali tense beside her. She reached for his hand, squeezing tight, knowing the impossible decision weighing on him. As the de facto leader of their small band, he bore the responsibility for 43 lives. We take a vote, Nahali said finally. Each adult decides for their family. Those who wish to surrender and go to the reservation, we will not judge. Those who wish to stay free in the mountains, we will support. But we decide together. The vote took hours. Families huddled together, voices rising and falling in heated whisper. Catherine sat with her children, watching their faces as they processed the implications. If we surrender, will they separate us? Nijoni asked, her green eyes wide with fear. I won't let them, Catherine promised, though she had no idea if she could keep that promise. Whatever happens, we're a family. Nothing changes that. I war stay in the mountains, Naichi said fiercely. I don't want to live in a cage. Catherine exchanged a look with Nahali. Their son had inherited both his parents' fierce independence, a blessing and a curse. Sometimes, Nahali said carefully, the bravest thing is choosing a harder path to protect what matters most. Your mother taught me that. When she let herself be captured, she bought time for all of us to reach safety. That took more courage than any battle. But you came for her, Naichi protested. You didn't leave her in that cage. No, I didn't, and I never will. Nahale pulled Catherine close. But there are different kinds of cages, my son. Some have bars, some have walls, some are invisible. The question is always the same. Can you maintain your spirit inside the cage while you wait for a chance at freedom? When the vote concluded, the tribe was evenly split. 22 wanted to surrender, hope for decent treatment, try to survive on the reservation. 21 wanted to stay free, whatever the cost. We will not divide the tribe, Nahale declared. Family groups may choose their path, but those who stay will help those who go, and those who go will not reveal the location of those who stay. It was Catherine who proposed the compromise. What if some of us surrender, but maintain connections with those who remain free? What if we become bridges between two worlds instead of choosing only one? Every eye turned to her. Catherine stood, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. I can return to the white world. I'm still legally Catherine Winslow. I can use that, leverage it, advocate for better treatment on the reservations, send supplies to those who remain free, be a voice for our people in spaces where Apache aren't welcome. They'll never let you leave once you're on the reservation, Goyale pointed out. They will if I'm not considered Apache anymore. Catherine took a deep breath. If I claim I'm a recovered captive still suffering from my ordeal, if I make a public show of returning to civilization, they'll welcome me, celebrate me even, and then I'll use that platform. Nahale stood abruptly. No. You're asking yourself to live a lie, to deny who you've become. I'm asking myself to use the privilege I was born with for something meaningful. Catherine met his eyes. You gave me freedom by letting me choose. Now I'm choosing to use my position as a white woman to help our people, both peoples, because I'm both, Nahale. I always will be. The debate raged for 3 days. In the end, 17 people decided to surrender, including Desba, whose age made mountain life increasingly difficult. Nahali's family was among them. "I hate this," Nahali said the night before they were to leave. "Every part of me screams to stay in these mountains, to keep living free." "But," Catherine prompted gently, "but our children deserve education, real education, in both worlds. They deserve the chance to become leaders, voices, bridges between cultures." He pulled her close. "You were right. Sometimes courage means choosing the harder path." "We're not surrendering who we are," Catherine insisted. "We're adapting, surviving, finding new ways to be free within new constraints." Nahali kissed her forehead. "You will be remarkable at this. You've always seen possibilities where others see only walls." The journey to the reservation was long and grueling. They traveled under military escort, soldiers eyeing the Apache with suspicion and contempt. Catherine played her role perfectly, the recovered captive, grateful for rescue, protective of the Indians who'd shown her kindness, eager to help them adjust to civilization. The reservation was worse than Catherine had imagined. Overcrowded, under-resourced, administered by corrupt officials who siphoned off supplies meant for the Apache. But Catherine threw herself into improving conditions with the same fierce determination she'd once applied to learning survival skills. She wrote letters to newspapers, describing the conditions. She cultivated relationships with reformers and politicians. She used her story, white woman who'd lived among Apache and found them to be people of dignity and honor, to challenge prevailing narratives. It was exhausting, infuriating work. For every small victory, there were dozens of defeats. But slowly, incrementally, things improved. Better food rations, access to education, some degree of autonomy in daily life. Nahale took a different path. He became a negotiator, using his knowledge of both Apache and white ways to mediate disputes, translate not just language, but culture. He taught the children traditional skills in secret, keeping knowledge alive even in confinement. Together, they created a life that was nothing like their mountain freedom, but still bore their stamp, their values, their refusal to be broken. Naichi and Najoni thrived in unexpected ways. Naichi became a voracious reader, devouring every book he could find, while still maintaining his warrior skills in private. Najoni discovered a talent for art, painting scenes of the mountains they'd left behind with such skill that a visiting journalist arranged for her work to be displayed in a Santa Fe gallery. "You're becoming who you're meant to be," Catherine told her daughter one evening as they looked at her latest painting, a stunning vista of the Sierra Madre at sunset. "I miss the mountains," Najoni admitted. "But I think maybe I can bring the mountains to people who've never seen them. Through my art, I can show them what we're fighting to preserve." Catherine felt tears prick her eyes. "That's perfect. That's exactly the kind of bridge we need." Years passed. The wound of captivity never fully healed. But they learned to live with it, to find joy and purpose despite the constraints. Nahale and Catherine's love deepened, tested by hardship and emerging stronger. They had 2 more children on the reservation, another son and daughter who would never know the absolute freedom of the mountains, but who grew up knowing their heritage, their strength, their worth. On their 20th anniversary, Nahale took Catherine to the edge of the reservation land, as far as they could go without crossing the boundary. In the distance, mountains rose against the sky, not their Sierra Madre, but still beautiful, still representing possibility. "Do you regret it?" Catherine asked, echoing his question from years ago. Surrendering, bringing our family here. Nahale considered, his face thoughtful. I regret what we lost. I mourn the freedom we had to give up. But I don't regret the choices we made, because look what we've built. He gestured back toward the reservation, where their children were teaching the next generation, where change was happening slowly but inexorably. We didn't surrender who we are. We found new ways to fight, new ways to be free. Her family ordered her to marry a stranger, Catherine said softly. But the Apache who kidnapped her set her free instead. And together they learned that freedom isn't just a place, it's a practice. Nahale smiled, pulling her into his arms. Together, he said. Always, Catherine replied. As the sun set over the distant mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, Catherine closed her eyes and let herself remember the first moment Nahale had offered his hand, the choice she'd made, the life they'd built through courage and compromise and love. They'd lost the mountains, but they'd kept their spirits free. And that, Catherine had learned, was the only freedom that truly mattered. The kind that lived inside you, unbreakable and eternal. The kind that could be passed down through generations, teaching new warriors how to be strong and new dreamers how to be brave. The kind worth fighting for, every single day, together. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're enjoying this tale from. Are you listening at home, during your commute, or perhaps while working? Please, subscribe to the From Wild West channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Catherine and Nahale's journey? Your feedback means the world to us.